This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Cureleaf, one of the nation's top multi-state cannabis operators with 48 local dispensaries, 14 cultivation sites, and 13 processing facilities, serving more than 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients. Check them out over at cureleaf.com, spelled Curaleaf. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, September 4th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 790 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. With this first of three stories today in the headlines, Marijuana Moments' Kyle Yeager picked up on a really interesting podcast interview given recently by Mahmoud El Soli, director of the single cultivation facility licensed by the federal government to grow marijuana, located at the University of Mississippi. This is the grow facility that is generally known to grow really crappy weed, something that's neatly backed up by the interview just given by Mr. El Soli, in which he explains his ideas that any cannabis above 8% THC is too potent. It's not explicitly stated, but it seems fair to say that Mr. El Soli isn't a cannabis consumer himself because, as Kyle points out in his story, he's basing his belief that anything over 8% is overkill within research protocols that require test subjects to smoke an entire machine-rolled cannabis cigarette. In the real world, people don't consume cannabis like that. We just smoke as much as we want until we feel a certain way, then we stop. High-potency marijuana actually allows you to smoke less overall as you get the desired effects sooner. This story explains a lot. I'd give it a read and a listen. BDS Analytics just published a report projecting that annual legal CBD sales will hit $20 billion by 2024, with THC cannabis piling in another $25 billion. That's pretty huge given that most people hadn't even heard of CBD just 5 years ago. Last year, CBD sales clocked in at $1.9 billion, with BDS pegging the industry's overall annual growth rate moving ahead at nearly 50%. The report helpfully breaks down current CBD sales verticals by popularity, showing ingestible CBD leading the way, followed by topicals and inhalables, distantly pet products, and FDA-approved pharmaceuticals. This is totally another storyline you need to be staying on top of, so I'd open up Green Market Report for Deb Borchart's take here. Kyle's back with a top headlines bookend, this time with a story about potential positive change for cannabis laws in Mexico, where federal lawmakers are facing an impending deadline from the nation's Supreme Court next month to end marijuana prohibition. Mexican Senator Julio Menchaca Salazar just introduced a bill that would legalize adult-use marijuana by allowing for the cultivation, possession, sharing, and consumption of cannabis. There is a lot of momentum behind this change, which has the full support of Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, to say nothing of the aforementioned Supreme Court deadline. This would be big change. Another good one to read today. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Cureleaf, one of the nation's top multi-state cannabis operators with 48 local dispensaries, 14 cultivation sites, and 13 processing facilities, serving more than 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients. With Cureleaf being located now in 12 states, there's a pretty good chance that there's a Cureleaf shop to you. So take some time today and open up Cureleaf.com, spelled Curaleaf, and check out the nearest location, because there's no better way to experience the Cureleaf difference than by making a visit yourself. And when you're visiting Cureleaf, ask about the Veterans Cannabis Project, which Cureleaf is helping to raise funds for and awareness of via in-store displays, which are being rolled out at Cureleaf shops nationwide. You can learn more about that very important organization, which fights for the supported and unrestricted access to medical marijuana by military veteran patients, over at vetscp.org. That's vetscp.org. Big thanks to everyone at Cureleaf for supporting our show and great causes like the ones fought for by the folks over at the Veterans Cannabis Project. All right, time for the Blitz. As expected, the state of Florida is asking the state's Supreme Court to take up a case involving how the legal marijuana system passed by voter initiative in 2016 is set up. Specifically, the required vertical integration mandated afterward by legislative effort. Lawyers for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis filed an appeal to have the case heard by a lower court, which kicked it up to the state's Supreme Court, knowing that it was eventually bound there anyway. There is a lot at stake here, as currently Florida marijuana licenses are worth quite a bit, as the vertical integration requirement gives license holders the ability to open up 35 dispensaries in addition to processing and cultivation sites. A good one to keep track of. The city of Los Angeles, California opened a virtual window yesterday for qualified social equity program applicants to submit applications for legal marijuana dispensary licenses. Applications will be accepted for 2 weeks through 10 a.m. local time on September 17th. There are approximately 800 people who were pre-vetted earlier this year for inclusion within the social equity program who are now vying for 100 licenses to be given out this round on a first-come, first-served basis. If you're involved with that in any way and need more detail, Marijuana Business Daily has them. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker just signed a bill into law that places restrictions on the legal marijuana industry in terms of how much water and electricity it can consume. The new law also regulates how Illinois cannabis cultivators have to deal with water runoff and waste. Given the vast amounts of both electricity and water required for indoor cannabis cultivation, this seems like a step in the right direction. Also, something you should probably get on sooner rather than later if you cultivate cannabis, because we're going to see laws like this in other states soon. Raw Story has a piece up about 68-year-old Michael Thompson, who sits in a Michigan prison after being arrested back in 1994 for selling marijuana to a police informant. Because Mr. Thompson had guns on his property, and let's be honest, probably because he's black, he was sentenced to 40 to 60 years in prison for his crime. Marijuana is now, of course, legal in Michigan, which makes it all the more unjust that Mr. Thompson remains locked away from the world. I don't know all the exact particulars of Mr. Thompson's case, but I do know that there are a lot of other Mr. Thompsons and Miss Thompsons out there all over the country who need to come home from prison. Don't ever forget the bigger issues with this whole legal cannabis thing. Swinging up to Canada, we have the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario disqualifying 12 applicants who had recently won license in the lottery held by provincial authorities. 42 new licenses in all were handed out in that round, and the 12 just stripped of license reportedly failed to submit required documents by an August 28th deadline. The 12 newly freed up licenses will be given to waitlisted applicants. Keeping up north, we have a report just issued by the U.S. Department of Agriculture on how things are going for Canada's legal industrial hemp market. The 6-page report was written by a U.S. government official working up in Canada and details how the country's current hemp crop is mostly used in producing non-CBD hemp-based food additives, as CBD hemp is still prohibited. There's an increasingly loud call within Canada for lawmakers to open up CBD for use in food additives and for both humans and pets, so a good overall storyline to watch. And finally for today, Colorado-based marijuana company Medicine Man Technologies just announced that it is acquiring fellow Colorado company Starbuds in a deal worth more than $30 million in cash and stock. Starbuds is a legal marijuana dispensary chain with 5 stores under operation. Pop over to New Cannabis Ventures for more detail if you need them. That's all the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Curaleaf, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the lesser strengths of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Jay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.